You go back to the fall of the Soviet Union. Suddenly, if you were from that side of things, from the communist side of things, you're looking at the world, and there's only one superpower left, and it's the United States of America. It is the only nation on earth that is built on the ideals of limited government, free enterprise, individual liberty, private property rights. So now you've got this one superpower that is completely opposed to everything you believe in. What do you do? Well, the word came down to harmonize the United States into the rest of the world. You know, what would get us to do that? What would get us to throw our liberties on the bonfire like a good old-fashioned book burning? Environmental Armageddon became the choice. You've got to save the planet. And that became the mantra. And Americans bought it hook, line, and sinker. The environmental movement became the most popular movement in the country, and people were willing to be led in any direction if it meant protecting the environment. And that's pretty much how we got there.
We have to do something, they say, because we're destroying the planet, the Earth has a fever, we have to do something. And that, if it were true, would be a legitimate argument, right? But if you're screaming fire in a crowded theater, then it's a wicked argument to make when there's no fire at all. You're just trying to move people.
There are three core claims that are propping up the entire movement.
In Michigan, they've done some wonderful studies at the university level, illustrating the fact that when you increase carbon dioxide, plant life grows wildly.
If you Google optimum CO2 concentration for plant growth, those plants, which all life depends on as their food source, you will find that it is 4 times the present level.
You can go back to the era here on planet Earth. Levels of carbon dioxide were probably 6 to maybe 12 times higher than today.
We're not at a high point now. We're at a low point.
Foliage was all over the planet.
Carbon pollution is now a common term that people are using, when in fact, if CO2 fell below 150 parts per million in the global atmosphere, all the plants would die. And then what would we eat? There wouldn't be anything left to eat but rocks at that point. Frost and ice are the enemy of life. You come from the tropics into the temperate zone and then the Arctic, you lose 99% of species biodiversity.
Which means that quite the opposite of what the alarmists say, global warming won't lead to more extinctions. It will lead to protecting more species from extinctions.
Over 115 different countries and territories are dying off by not having the 2.1 children per woman that is necessary for a country to survive. Population has increased in recent years because of modern medicine, and our environment has become so much cleaner. The world could easily handle 100 billion people, but it will never even reach 10 billion. As soon as this generation of elderly start dying off, population will decline for as far as the demographer's eye can see.
You know, you could move the entire population of the globe to the state of Texas, use 1/3 of it for living space, 1/3 for factories and workplaces, and another 1/3 for recreation, and you could leave the entire rest of the world completely uninhabited.
You don't have to dig very deep into the key people and groups involved for it to become crystal clear why they continue to promote these lies.
Karl Marx really got the entire modern environmental movement rolling. It's well documented. In fact, you can go back to 1883, a paper that was written by Frederick Engels and Karl Marx, Dialectics of Nature. They talk about global cooling. They were trying to scare people into believing that mankind's pollution was going to put the Earth into a free fall temperature-wise, and there would be no life whatsoever. Ray Lancaster studies at the feet of Karl Marx and comes up with a saying that is really, I mean, it's at the heart of the environmental movement today. Humans are the insurgent sons of nature. Interestingly, Ray Lancaster had a disciple who was named Arthur Tainsley. Arthur Tainsley coined the term ecology. The word ecology was essentially fashioned by a disciple of Karl Marx.
And it keeps going. Earth Day is celebrated on April 22nd each year because that was Vladimir Lenin, the founder of the Soviet Union's birthday. And Gus Hall, who wrote the book Ecology that helped get the movement rolling, was the head of the Communist Party USA.
The modern engine of the environmental movement is the United Nations.
You have to remember, the United Nations Charter was written by Alger Hiss, one of the most notorious Soviet spies working in the FDR administration. People don't know that.
When my friend was training in Moscow, the Soviets were openly telling all of their students from all over the world, the United Nations is our thing. We own it. This is our instrument for policy. This is our baby.
Maurice Strong has headed up the entire environmental program of the United Nations for decades and is the father of Agenda 21. He said, quote, Agenda 21 is a blueprint for constructing the new world order. It is vital people grasp this, unquote. He picked Gro Harlem Brundtland to write out the world's environmental agenda in a document titled Our Common Future, which is where the term sustainable development was used for the first time. Guess who she was? The former vice president of the World Socialist Party, the group that Karl Marx himself started. The icing on the cake is the next player I came across, Mikhail Gorbachev, the murderous communist dictator. Guess what he did immediately upon stepping down from the Soviet Union? He started an environmental group, Green Cross International.
You mentioned Gorbachev. He has no problem at all switching gears from the Soviet destroyer of the environment, comes to America, he's the savior of the environment. But what's he promoting? Bigger government, more control, more power to the United Nations, less individual freedom, all of the agenda of collectivism. He's doing exactly the same thing in San Francisco that he was doing in Moscow.
And he isn't just some fringe player. He is one of the leaders. When I found out that the Earth Charter, which is supposed to be the new 10 Commandments for the 21st century, was written by Mr. Gorbachev, it was clear. Environmentalism isn't just like communism. It is communism. You couldn't make this stuff up.
A lot of the people in the peace movement were in fact more pro-Russia and anti-American than anything. And they brought their neo-Marxism with them into the environmental movement, pushing it to the extreme left of the political spectrum. Greenpeace and their allies and a whole bunch of other fellow travelers have adopted these agendas, which actually, if they were brought into effect, would cause more damage to people and the environment than if we just went about our sort of conventional way that we're on now.